Welcome to the Career Jiu-Jitsu Podcast, where we connect the art of Jiu-Jitsu with your career. Our mission is to empower and inspire you with engaging conversations and valuable insights from people just like you who benefit from the shared relationship between your workplace and the art of Jiu-Jitsu, leading you to a more fulfilling and successful life. Hello, welcome to the Career Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. We are so excited today. We have Grace Nowak. We are going to do a podcast here with Grace and with Grace. Grace is a BJJ Black Belt and has a lot of experience in BJJ. And she also is a child care coordinator for the Children's Home of Jefferson County. She has a degree in psychology from Lesley University, and she has a wealth of experience in her career as well. So she is going to connect her career to the art of jiu-jitsu. So we are so excited to have you on, Grace. Thank you for coming to our podcast.
No problem.
Yes, Grace, this is going to be great. One of the great things we love is we love to have women on our show because we don't feel like there's enough females who take advantage of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So we're going to hope to get some of your perspective on that and what it's like and what you've learned and some tips for women who are thinking about getting into BJJ. But before we do that, can you tell us a little bit about your career as a child care coordinator and what that entails? How'd you get into it? What you like about it?
To be honest, when I was looking at jobs, I wanted to find something that fit my degree, but also paid me more. I used to work for a women's residence house for substance abuse, but it's nonprofit. You don't really get paid a lot for what you have to deal with. I love the job, but I was pregnant with my first child during that time, and I was like, this isn't worth it. And then I worked for the county for the office for the aging, and that was great, but it was also like boring. So then I just found the children's home, and it does seem like a lot being a care coordinator. Sometimes I have a caseload of like 25 kids, and they're all at different ratings, which basically means that's how many times you have to meet them a month, and what they might need a lot more than others. Like throughout the months, it depends.
Can you tell us just a little about the children's home? Like what exactly
In
the kids
general.
live there? Kids live there full time or they visit? How does that work?
So that part is, so we don't have like a home anymore. Like they don't have the, like, I guess you call it the orphanage foster home anymore, like on campus. What that is now is it's called a respite. So if kids need a break, like, or their families need a break from the kid, like both ways, the kid can voluntarily go. And instead of going like inpatient to like a mental health center, they'd be like, hey, I need a break. I'm going to go utilize respite. And they have like counselors on hand and like other staff that work with them. And they can still go to school and all that. And then go home actually whenever they want to. But they are allowed to stay there up to 2 weeks or longer if they need it. And then my program, what I'm involved in is I help connect families to resources. So like our respite, or maybe there's other respites too. We're not the only respite around, but I coordinate their care between like verbal therapists and like medication management and primary care doctors and dentists. I might connect them to the office for people with developmental disabilities if they need it. I'm making sure everyone's communicating with one another.
You're the hub. You're basically the
Yeah,
hub
I'm the hub.
piece of
Exactly.
all the care that child would need. And
Yes.
it's children from 1 years old to 18 or
They could literally be 0 months old if
so
they
0 to
needed it.
18
Yep.
basically. Wow, so you must see everything.
You see a lot, and definitely you think you have a bad caseload, and then you hear about another person's caseload, you're like, "Wow, I got it easy."
Yeah.
But, yeah, there are a lot of sad stories. Some kids come from a lot of abuse, but then there's some kids, it's not really that they're coming from a lot of abuse, but they have, like, behavioral issues that have affected their school life. So, like, whether that's ADHD, maybe they just have a mood disorder, so they have depression, and that's affecting their school life. So you have to find ways to connect them to those resources. And sometimes schools, like, you would think schools and doctors and all that are great at communicating that they've done these things for the child, but they're not, because you talk to the parents, they have no idea what's going on with their kid.
Wow.
So it's definitely a helpful service. I've seen that more now as I've gotten more into the job. Because
Do
at first
you
it seemed like I was just an extra cook in the kitchen. Now I realize what's going
So
on.
you personally engage, you have 25 kids, you engage with them, you talk to them, you understand their issues, their problems. So you connect like you form bonds, you must form bonds with these
Oh, yeah.
kids.
Yep. I have one kid, we meet and we play Jenga, like, every time we meet. That's, like, our meeting at school. You have to build a rapport because if you don't build a rapport, they're just always gonna tell you, "Ah, things are good.
Yeah.
Things are great," and it's like, "No, they're not." Just yeah, I get them to talk to you a little
Yeah,
bit.
you get the one word answers
Mhm.
if they don't
Yeah, so then you
feel
have to
invested in
learn
you.
how to, like, do those investigative questions, like, "Why was it good?" Like, "Can you tell me a good thing that happened, a bad thing that happened?" Things like that.
Wow.
So you found a job you like and one that pays you well. So congratulations on that. Tell our listeners a little bit about your journey in jujitsu. And the listeners are going to be very impressed when they hear your story of some of the things you've accomplished. So, why don't you start from the beginning? What happened? One day you woke up and said, I want to take a class in jujitsu. How did that happen?
So, I've been in and out of, like, martial arts since I was 4. My mom actually put me in because she saw me playing Power Rangers and wanted me to be responsible, so she put me in taekwondo so I could learn to not hit people just because. And then I got out of taekwondo when I was like 8. I tried to get back to it, I couldn't. Then I did aikido for a few years actually, and that ended. The instructor was just, we'll just say, not the greatest. And so then yeah, I found out about this judo club that was on the same road as the aikido school, and I just decided to go in and try it. Um and that was in 2008, and it was just like it's just judo club. You just pay like a lifetime fee. It was like $100. You just go. Like, and I went
Wow.
6 days a week, for my first, like, several well, I was at the judo club for a couple years, but, like, ever since starting jujitsu, I was, like, going, like, every day, but at the judo club was basically I had 1 class a week of jujitsu, and then it was just rolling the rest of the time, so I
So
learned a lot
judo,
from
it
just
wasn't I'm sorry, just so to
well, sure, yeah.
clarify, it wasn't judo with all the throws, it was more of a jujitsu, or was it
I
with the
did
throws?
so it was based so the guys who ran it were they're judo guys, but there was a guy there that has started a jiu-jitsu class who's a blue belt, but the family it was run by, like, one big, like, family, and they're all judo, like, black belts. So, there was a judo class once a week, but I just never took to judo the same way, like, I've learned it, I know, but, like, my thing was, like, the jiu-jitsu. So, I'd go and I'd roll, and there was, like, 2 hours of rolling, like, 6 days a week.
Wow. Thrown into the fire.
I mean, yeah,
Really?
I literally just threw myself into it. And I was the only girl. I started when jujitsu was like you were lucky to ever meet another girl unless you were competing. And that was like all the way up until coming here. I didn't train with any girls up until like 2015. In 2009, so a year later, 2009, Jiu-Jitsu Nation opened up in Watertown, which was like an official jiu-jitsu school. So I did go there. And then that's actually where I met my current boyfriend, who is the father of my children. We met in jiu-jitsu. I bet
Okay.
him I could put him in a triangle, and I did. He didn't tap, but
That's
he
one
still
way to
got me
get
the
respect,
box.
right?
Right. He still got me the box of Mike and Ike's that he said he would get me if I put him in a triangle. So and then we ended up moving to Cape Cod. We lived there for about it was like 5 years. It was 2010, and we trained with Seth Silva, who was under Daniel Gracie, and I got my blue belt pretty much right when we got to Cape Cod, so 2 years after starting. And then
Wow.
we trained there for like 5 years. And I got my purple belt from Seth Silva. At that time, he had switched over to Nova União at the
Mhm.
time, so I actually got it while he was, like, working with Hene. I forget his last name. But then we moved back up here in 2015. I started working with Curtis Mosley at Bering Jiu-Jitsu, and actually it was kinda cool because it came full circle because a guy I had started training with in 2008 was also at this school, like, helping to run it, Jamie Fryer. So I got to train with people I had trained with in the beginning again and then also meet all these new people, so it was pretty cool. Then also, like, this whole time, I was training MMA as well, so I was doing boxing and Muay Thai, competing in mixed martial arts, and I was always trying to do, like, 5 jiu-jitsu competitions a year. They're always, like, local competitions, but, um, just to get my experience up. So when I came here, I continued to do the MMA more than the jiu-jitsu competitions. And then I started teaching as a purple belt. And I just kept working until I got to 2024. And it was time for me to test for my black belt. And we train under Grandmaster Flavio Behring, who's actually from like, oh man, I knew this for my black belt test, but it was like the 1940s, right? And he trained with, like, he grew up training with the original Gracie family. He's, in his
Wow.
80s. He's a
So
red belt.
you're tapping into history.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. That was pretty surreal. Like when I first moved here, I actually got to meet him because he used to do seminars. It's been a while, but he would come up and do seminars, and like his like way of explaining technique is fantastic. It's like simple. He's focused on like just like non-flashy movement, which is great for me because as you get to purple belt, you want to do all the flashy things, and you kind of learn that it's not about that. But yeah, so I actually got to test for my black belt with him and like a few other like high up there belts in the Bearing like chain of schools, you could say. And then it was also cool because I got my black belt from like the first person I ever rolled with, like watching, which was Jamie Fryer, and another instructor that joined us, Billy Garrett. I also started training with, so he got to see me get my black belt. So everything kind of just came full circle with me getting this black belt from this red belt who was just amazing. So it's just a surreal, like, thing for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So for the listeners that are only hearing the podcast, not viewing it, I'll let you know that I am actually in our MMA cage right now. So Grace fought MMA, and so that's why I'm doing this podcast in our MMA cage in tribute to Grace's experience in MMA. So Grace started competing in MMA, you said in 2009, and you did it for 10 years. Can you tell us a little bit about, or tell our listeners, I should say, a little bit about your experience of fighting MMA for 10 years? Because that's a long time. 10 years is a long time to be fighting MMA.
Yeah. So I have a terrible record, and I don't even know, I don't know, like, 0-2 pro, 3 and something amateur. There's a lot of, like, it's a lot of learning about your body. Originally, when I fought my first fight was, like, my first weight cut, so I had to get down to, like, 115 in 2 weeks from, like, 130. And then after that, I never really had to worry about weight cuts anymore. It's like my body was like, "Okay, we'll just stay around 115." But my first fights were, like, in Pennsylvania, and it was just you learn a lot about yourself, like, getting to a cage and having someone, like, actually like, not just, like, sparring, like, when someone's actually fighting you, it's
Right.
completely different because it's just your brain just lets go of that, like, "Oh, I can't hurt this person, like, I can't use all my strength, I can't do all," like, your brain just lets all that go, and, like, you're just trying to beat the crap out of each other, especially in those early fights. So there's no real thinking, you're just going at it. I did win my second fight, and that was by armbar because it felt like such a backwater part of Pennsylvania. It was like I fought in like a barn type thing, like they held proms there, and this is like the venue for the fights. I remember the girl's sister had messaged me after and said they don't wrestle around there, and I was like, "Okay, I guess we probably should wrestle." The girl herself, though, was really great. She was very respectful. I just remember getting a message from her sister, and it just was like, "What is happening here?" My third fight was one of those probably shouldn't have taken fights. They switched out the opponents at the last minute, and I just kept going from there. I just kept wanting to do it. I didn't really ever want to give up, even though I've had bad experiences losing. I've also had good experiences losing though too, because I'd like to say I'm a pretty tough cookie. Like I'll hang in there the whole time. You can beat the crap out of me, like, but you either have to like submit me or knock me out to like end the fight. So I'm just gonna keep coming. I've gotten to meet a lot of cool people because of MMA. I got to win a fight in front of Nick Diaz, who was at
Wow.
yeah, this was at a fight promotion in Rochester and full contact. I think what do they call themselves now? It's FCP, but I forget what it stands for now, to be honest. I think it's full contact promotions or something similar like that. They were able to get Nick Diaz to go to the fights, and I got to win against a really good wrestler by triangle, and it was really cool as I walked out of the cage, and he was just like, "I was hoping you were gonna finish that," and he did a seminar, afterwards the next day, and I got to roll with him. It was like a 20-minute roll, like, the first time he tapped me in 3 minutes, then the second time, like, it took a lot longer. I even did like I don't know if you guys are familiar, but when you get to someone's back and you jump on their back like you're surfing, I did that to him in the middle of the roll. So that was pretty surreal. It was pretty cool. I got to meet Rose and Pat Barry at another seminar held by the same fight promotion. I didn't fight on that card that time, but I got to work with like Rose and Pat Barry because they MMA people are just cool and down to earth. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them. So it's just been so that part has been really crazy. Like whether I've won or lost a lot of fights, I've gotten to meet like all of these cool people and do all these cool things because of it.
Nice.
Hmm.
Yeah. So can you, Grace, for our listeners now, can you connect now? Your experience with BJJ, your experience in MMA, and your experience as being a child care coordinator. Can we make this connection now? I know earlier you talked about being trying, that it's taught you how to remain calm during, when you're in a high pressure environment. I know in MMA, when you step into that cage, that's certainly a high pressure environment that you need to stay calm in, right?
Yeah.
So that's just one example of the connection that you made. So can you talk a little bit about some more connections that maybe you find between your workplace and jujitsu?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that one other way these different things seem to like not connect at all, but they do connect is that, everyone's different and you run into all different type of body types in jiu-jitsu, right? Like you're really flexible people, you're really spazzy people. So there's always different ways to handle those people to get to like the same solution. So like with some families that I have, there's some parents are a lot more, I would say, they don't really know anything about what's going on. And then you have parents that are really involved and you have to find ways to get them to like go to that therapist. Even the ones who are really involved, like it's easy, obviously. But the ones who aren't, you had to figure out ways to like convince them like, hey, it's not an embarrassing thing. It's important for your child to go. You just have to find like different solutions for different families, essentially. Just like you would find a different solution on how to armbar the really flexible person versus the really stiff or strong person that can arm curl you, right?
Right.
I would also say, like, kinda cutting out the fat too, because there are a lot of, like, pointless things that can happen in this job, like, you can go off on a tangent with the family and, like, not even solve anything if you allow, like, too many of the details to, like, get in the way. Because sometimes the family will start getting hyper focused on, like, one aspect of thing that's something that's going wrong with their child when it's, like, it's not just them missing the homework, there's something else going on here. In jujitsu, especially like I would say my style, I'm not very flashy. I like to just kind of get to the point, but I do have other like tricks up my sleeve in case like the one way doesn't work out, just like anything. The first way might not work out right away. So I'd say that's one way jujitsu and my job connect is just finding all those different pathways to solve something and being able to like cut out the stuff you don't need to get to the solution, making it simple, easy to understand.
The fundamentals, Jason always says that.
Right. Yeah. If that
Fundamentals
that
win
makes
fights
sense.
and fundamentals, win relationships and make you a more effective business person
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. And I definitely, especially like getting up there in the ranks and like just getting more experience as a person, a human being, it's definitely just you go right back to simple things. You don't you end up not doing that secret crazy De La Hiva Berimbolo
Yeah.
ankle lock
All the
to
all the
triangle.
really are
Right.
so
Yeah. They're
practiced
still
once in a while.
fun. Yeah.
But yes, fundamentals. You're not the first person who has said that either. A lot of people who practice jujitsu have learned that, the cool, flashy moves are cool and flashy, and you certainly can hit them sometimes, but the fundamentals is really your bread and butter, right?
Hmm.
Quick question. You said something that piqued my interest. You said that one of the most important parts of your job is building rapport,
Hmm.
building bonds. And do you feel like that is similar to your training in jujitsu as and MMA as well?
Sure. 'Cause, you have those bonds with your coaches. You gotta be able to get along with your coach, right? That'd be a very terrible experience if you
It
hated the
really would
person
be.
cornering you. And same thing with your teammates. Like it's an individual sport, but at the end of the day, you want people there to cheer you on or want to come help you. And if you don't have that, it can be a very lonely experience. And I mean, you won't really get anywhere if you don't have anyone to work with.
I would
So
imagine
it's super similar.
if somebody could not make bonds in their jujitsu and in their MMA, they probably would not last long in the field.
Right, and you see that. I've seen, like, stories, people talking about it, and it just doesn't as far as jiu-jitsu goes, you see people talk about other schools, and, like, a lot of it's like, "Oh, I couldn't get along with anyone there. I couldn't form any bonds, and then they leave, then they quit. And that always sucks.
Yeah, it's the roots that keep us. It's the long, winding roots that keep us where we are, right? Keep us grounded and keep us with our people.
Yeah, it's about the
Yeah.
culture, right? You know, if you have a great culture, you have a great culture in your BJ gym, I mean, you have a great culture at work. It definitely makes the environment much better for you and helps you to be successful in both areas, you know? So it's great. So, Grace, when you were talking about the environment and like how you have to communicate a lot, is it similar? Do you find some parallels between gyms and your work environment in terms of communication? You know, like, I know that like when we're in the BJJ gym, we drill techniques, and it's important to be able to communicate with the other person so you can both understand the technique. Or maybe you're doing a roll, and after the roll is over, you're able to communicate like, oh, hey, you could have put your arm here, or you could have moved over your hips a little bit this way, it would have worked. So it always helps being able to be a good communicator on the mats with your training partners. Does that translate into your career as well?
I would definitely say so. I would definitely say that it helps because I've run into situations where I will talk to family and they'll be like, "Oh, this service provider hasn't been doing anything for us," or they just tell me, "Oh, we don't know what they're doing." And I'm like, "Okay." Then I talk to the service provider and they're like, "Well, we've been doing all this stuff for them. I don't know what they're talking about." So then I had to get them on the same page to get them to understand, because maybe the family doesn't understand that the service provider has been doing anything for them, or like what the service provider is even doing. So I had to like tell them, well, they're working on like cognitive testing for school. For like instance, this was a provider that especially helps with school and like getting testing done. And the family said they didn't know what was going on. They had no idea if the kid was getting tested or not. And the service provider is like, no, this is definitely happening. I just have to go through these steps. So then I had to go back and explain it to the family. So yeah, it's definitely very similar in that
Yeah,
sense.
it kinda sounds like a three-dimensional puzzle that you have to put together. When I think of the way you're talking about your career, it seems like you have a three-dimensional puzzle that's moving, and you
Mhm.
have to keep all the pieces and all the links together, which is a really dynamic kind of way to have to do your job, right? You have to almost flow like the water, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you had to flow like jujitsu. You had to just gotta take it and go with it every which way. You might have to change direction suddenly and just be able to understand that now you're going down a new path and now you gotta figure out a new solution and not be upset, and patience. You need a lot of patience.
Working with kids that are disadvantaged and facing adversity, you really do have to have compassion and patience, and,
Mhm.
jujitsu definitely teaches you patience because you can only improve so fast in jujitsu,
Right. Yeah.
right? But you wanna improve like this, but sometimes you improve like and sometimes it's just right?
Right, it's just a plateau.
It's just we've all plateaued, absolutely. I had a question. You said something very interesting to me. You said you had your pro fights, you had your amateur fights, you won some, you lost some. So, I kind of picked up that you're like, "But even the ones I lost, I had fun and I learned a ton and I met great people." That attitude is the attitude of somebody who's winning in life, who's, like, looking at things and saying, "Okay, I didn't get the result that I wanted, but boy, that journey was awesome, and I'm gonna be better on the next time I climb that mountain." Do you find that that experience makes you more resilient in your job, and those characteristics carry over to what you do professionally?
Sure, because I mean, there's a lot of times when it seems like you're not able to do anything for these families other than just like sit there and listen to their woes because you don't know how to help them at first. But then in that you get to know them better through that and build that rapport, and like you get to learn more from them. So you can eventually find a way to help them. So it's like, again, it's using that patience, just understanding that it might not be a win right away. You might have to like work at it, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
But yeah, I definitely, and being able to stay positive, because like I said, there's a lot of sad stories. Um, and that you just come across, and it's never fun hearing those stories. So, like being able to stay positive and just knowing that you can keep moving forward and keep the family moving forward. It's definitely a trait that translates from MMA to jiu-jitsu. Because if you just like, if you lose a fight and you just quit, then that's it. Then you really did lose.
Right,
So it's like the same thing here.
right.
If you just quit on the family, then, that's it. You quit on them, like, and that's not fair to them, obviously.
And I bet you that experience also helps you in your jujitsu too. Knowing
Mhm,
like, hey, at my job, this happens all the time. I got nowhere today. I got absolutely nowhere, but I'm
mhm,
not giving up. Same thing in jujitsu sometimes, right? You feel like you had a great week, and the next week you're like, what happened? I
right.
had all that progress. Where did it go?
Mhm.
So it
Yep,
kind
even
of,
as a black belt, that happens
I'm
for
sure
sure.
to everybody. Jason always tells us we don't
Yeah.
believe him really, but he always tells us, "Oh, I have some hard roles with people, and I don't know
We
what to
just don't
do."
tell you.
He tells us, but I don't I can't imagine that he would have a hard problem with anybody, but that's just how it is, right? Everything is relative. It's
Mhm.
all
Yeah,
relative.
definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, having that open-mindedness, right, Grace? In like you said, when you have children that you don't know what type of trauma they've experienced,
Mhm.
what they're going through, do you think that that helps you to be a more kind and compassionate person on the mats as well?
I like to think so, because you don't know what people are going through throughout the day.
Right.
Sometimes people aren't so good at letting the ego go at the door, whatever happened to them at the door. You kind of just have to remember, like, you don't know, like, what happened that day. So
Right.
you just try to keep it, at light, keep them calm, just be understanding. Like, if they do something, it might not be personally against you.
Right.
I has nothing to do with you at all. So just, not to take things personally is definitely a big part of being on the mats.
Yeah, I mean, I've had experiences in my gym where, somebody's training and they get really frustrated and upset.
Mhm. Mhm.
I've even had people get so upset that they storm out, just
Yeah.
get really angry and just storm out of the building.
But I promised I wouldn't do
It
that
doesn't
anymore.
I know, and I'm like, "Frank, please come back for."
This is every week. This is every week.
Yeah, it's just I'm just kinda sick of doing it all the time for him, but, just thinking about writing a contract next time he does it, and I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
have
I
some
get a
Right.
surcharge of $50 every time I storm out.
No, but in all seriousness though, we haven't had that happen often, but it has happened. And so your immediate reaction, I think my immediate reaction when somebody does that is like, "Man, what's his problem? Like what the hell, why did he get so upset?" And then
Mhm.
and I don't open my and not open my mind enough, I think,
Mhm.
in realizing that that person that just stormed up, got up and stormed out of the building, they've been going through something. Maybe they had a bad day. Maybe they have some trauma that I don't know about,
Yeah.
So that, this conversation is really important, I think, for BJJ practitioners to know and to understand how you need to be empathetic to your training partners because you don't know what they've gone through. And, also for you, you can translate that from the mats into your career as well and from your career to the mats, right?
Yeah,
being
definitely.
being a very empathetic person, you have no choice to be a very empathetic person in your career.
Mhm.
So
For a second, I wanted to ask you about being a female in the art of jujitsu and what advice you might have for women who they're underrepresented in the sport, right? There's not if you go to
Mhm.
any gym, there's not as many women as there are men, but the women who are there love it. They're like, more women should do
Oh,
this,
yeah.
right? What would you say to women? Like, explain a little bit about maybe the difference of being a woman going into jujitsu, and then what you would say as advice to a female who might be thinking of joining.
Hmm.
That's a
That's hard.
deep one.
That's deep. Yeah, especially for me, because, like, when I got into I just threw myself into it, like, I didn't care. Like I said, I was the only girl, I was scrappy, I just fought. But I think, important advice going in is just looking at the culture of the gym. Like, are they inviting? Are they, like, family friendly? Are there other girls there who have stuck around and, like, enjoy being there? Do those girls feel ignored by, like, the rest of the population? Like, are the guys all willing to roll with them, etcetera? Are the girls all willing to roll with the guys? Like, are there a lot more guys than not that they don't like to roll with? And, it is a lot of personal space. You had to get used to that getting taken away from you because you're going to run into all sorts of sweat and hair getting in your mouth. So you kind of just have to accept that. personal space is gone. But it's such a great thing to get into, especially for self-defense. I feel like especially you get that live, like, even though you're not really, like, fighting the other person per se, maybe you are if you're new, but you get to go with people who don't know how to use their body, who are spazzy. You have to learn how to control them, and then you go with people who are higher up that know how to use their body. They might be more athletic or they've just been doing jiu-jitsu a long time. So you get those different looks, and it just kinda gives you an idea of, like, pressure might feel like in a real life situation, especially if you're underneath a 200-pound man. Like, it just gives you that experience. It tests your metal. Like, you're going to get a toughness from that that you might not normally get from other sports. And it can build discipline. Um, then, I mean, it's just fun. It's a good way to connect to people and learn. And I'd say any woman who wants to get into it, like, important thing is to pay attention to again is just that gym culture and making sure like the people in general are like happy there and like they get along and they're not trying to gatekeep or push people out or you know, have weird cult like rules, like you can't train in other gyms.
Right, right.
Yeah,
No, I mean,
I
that's great
think
advice.
with so, like, with that on that concept, right? So you on the mats, like, you have to train, and you teach a lot too, right? Sometimes
Yeah,
are
I
you
have a
'cause you're a black
regular
belt now,
Sunday
so
class. Yep.
okay. So when you are on the mats and you're teaching and you kinda have to manage, a lot of different types of people, little, body
Yeah.
types, where they're coming from, skill levels, right? So in that kinda setting for you as a teacher and needing the situation can be complex on the mats when you have, like, 10 people coming from all different backgrounds and skill levels, right?
Right.
And that is similar to also to your workplace, right? You have a lot of different, families that you have to try to find solutions to the problems with.
Mhm.
So, do you find that that has helped you to be, again, more open-minded to the different types of people that you're working with on the mats and at
Definitely. I mean, you're especially in jiu-jitsu, you're gonna run into all different types of like cultures even of people that come in that just have different ways of looking at things or like maybe we live near an army base. Actually, I'm an army brat myself. I mean, I didn't move around a lot, but I grew up on an army base. So that in itself helps me dealing with all sorts of different types of people. So it's always important to keep in mind that people come from different walks of life, whether it's a different religion, whether it's different culture, different race. It can all affect how they view things. So you just kind of have to keep an open mind because you might do something that offends them. And you have to be open to the fact, like, of understanding, like, hey, I offended this person. I want to learn, like, why, and then fixing that so you don't do it again. So it's
yeah,
definitely
people
important. It's my job.
yeah, and people understand things differently too, right? So, like,
Yes, exactly.
if you're teaching a certain technique, you might teach it one way to one person so they can understand it, but then teach it a different
Yes.
way to another person
Everyone
so they
has
can
like
understand it
different
as well.
cues that help them, I've
Yeah,
found.
yeah, and you experience that with the kids you work with too? Sometimes you have to take different routes or different avenues on getting us the same message across to them?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially with, like there are some kids who just don't wanna engage, so you have to, like, really find why they might not wanna engage, and, like, for instance, I have a kid, and I think he feels like everyone's always just telling him what he needs to do, and granted, he's hasn't engaged at all for a while, but at the time, I was handling it as, like, I'm gonna let him just talk when we meet and just see where we go with this. Like, is there anything I'm gonna find out if I just let him talk instead of telling him what he needs to do and what we feel he should do? And, like, it kinda helped. I was getting him interested in starting a job and stuff, but he kinda went backwards. It was no one's fault. It's just it's the unfortunate side effect of, like, what he goes through. He could be schizophrenic. They haven't given him an official diagnosis yet, so it's kind of the unfortunate side effect to a diagnosis like that. And he's very defiant.
Mhm.
But just doing simple things like that. Whereas there are like other kids, like they don't mind if you tell them what they need to do because they need that direction. They need to be told like, I need to go do this to get a job, or like I need help like figuring out what I like. So can you give me options of things I might like? They just because they just don't know yet.
Yeah, you kinda have to find what their way is that, what's gonna click with them, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. How it's gonna resonate, kinda like with Frank, I'm like, you know, "Frank, you gotta do this from the north south." And then he's like, "Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. Now it makes sense. The north-south position, I can get it from there? Okay, I get it."
Yeah, 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 exactly.
That's where you meet me because that's all I know. That's exactly true. And I love, Jason, when you say, if you just did this, Frank, you always say, like, oh, Frank, you were right there if you just did this. But I know deep down, if
Right,
I just did this, you would do something else. But
right.
it is good. You do have to be, adaptability is definitely
And
key.
we've had the fortunate experience. You've had the fortunate experience, Frank, sorry to cut you off. You've had the fortunate experience as well to roll with Grace because Grace has been to our gym on a few different occasions. You've had a chance to roll with her, and you've
I
experienced
have
what it's like to have a female black belt,
Here's the
you
thing,
know,
Grace and I
rolling
have
with, right?
trained together. We've trained together. We've done some resistance drills and some we've never rolled though. We got to roll next time, Grace.
You haven't.
Yeah, I think we've just done the resistance
W
ones.
Yeah, Grace, you know what? I think he was ducking you. Yeah,
Probably.
very likely
I
he
told you that
just
in
he
private,
probably
Jason.
turned away and, like, had to go get a drink or something, you know?
I told you that in private and now you just blasted all over. Jeez, Jason. I said, don't put me with her. I don't want to be with her. She's going to kill me. And now I'm on blast. Thanks a lot for that. No, Grace, next time you and I are gonna get a good roll in, definitely. I would love that, opportunity
Yes,
to
definitely,
roll
for
with you.
sure.
I'm sure I will learn a ton. Wow.
Yeah. Well, this
If you
has been
guys see,
great.
like, I
Let's
look
get some
down a lot
takeaways.
because
This
I'm
is awesome.
taking notes. I have so many notes here. Uh, wow, Grace, your story is just so impressive. The fact that you did MMA, amateur and pro, that's just so impressive. That is such even people who practice jujitsu and boxing and everything to actually get in the ring and do MMA, it takes a special kind of person to do that, a certain grit, a certain mettle. Kudos to you for putting yourself out there and doing that. That's just amazing. And you did say that you were maybe looking
Well,
forward to
thank
doing
you.
it again. So I hope that you do get a chance to do that again. I think that would be awesome.
Thank you. I hope so too.
I think you will. You seem like somebody who's very determined. I have a few things to wrap up of some of the great. I mean, I can't wrap it all up because you've given us so many pieces of wisdom and so many great things to think about. But I made a couple of stars next to some of the things you said. One of the things you said early on in our conversation was the power of staying optimistic. And you said that in your career, sometimes you look at a very sad situation and you're making progress by the inch or the centimeter or sometimes plateauing, but the power of staying optimistic always helps you prevail. I thought that was wonderful. And I think that's something for everybody to take away. I liked that you talked about how important your rapport is with your kids, with your caseload of 25 kids, and that rapport is the exact thing that makes you successful. And that also you told us that in an MMA environment or jiu-jitsu environment, if you don't have rapport, you're never gonna last. And building that rapport is important. Everybody who
Right.
has a successful career, I think, would agree with you on that. And it's just great to reinforce that. One thing you said that really stood out was cutting the fat. That's how you phrased it. Cutting the fat, staying focused, being on your fundamentals, the flashy moves. Everybody should have a couple in their back pocket. But your game in jujitsu, your game in life, right, is to cut the fat, focus on the fundamentals, always have a plan B, but keep it simple. And I think that's something that we need to be reminded of often. And then the very end, two big points that you brought up. One was empathy and compassion that we talked about. And I love that you said you don't know what happened to that person you're working with. And I just learned this. I don't know if I'm going to butcher this term. It was fundamental characterization error. When we look at somebody who's acting a certain way and we characterize as you're a jerk, you're a loser, you're
Mhm.
a jerk, when you're not really asking yourself, what might have happened today? Did you go to a funeral? Did you just go through a divorce? Did your parents tell you that you're no longer welcome in their house? And I love that you talked about that empathy and compassion. And Jason, you also brought that onto the mats and said when you're teaching, you have to look at everybody's background and where they came and be adaptable to understand their culture, understand what they're going through. I thought that was great. And then I'm very happy that you did a shout out to women to find a jujitsu gym. And I loved your advice. Check out the culture. Talk to the people there, talk to the men and women.
Yes.
Really, they will talk to you. How do you like it here? How long have you been here? Do you feel comfortable as a woman? It's very, very simple. You will find that most jiu-jitsu gyms, I would say most, are going to be very friendly to females and want them there. And I think most guys are gonna want to roll with the females and vice versa. I thought that was great. You talked about the value you got from it, the discipline. You gave us so many things to think about, and I hope that our listeners take these, they digest them, and they apply them to their lives, either in sports or in their careers.
I hope so too.
Definitely.
I
Yeah,
appreciate you guys
awesome.
having me on. It's been fun.
I'm
Yeah, it
glad you had
definitely was.
fun.
I'm glad that you were able to do this for us. Yeah, and we have a call to action too, right, Frank?
We have a lot of calls to action, but one of our major calls to action is we really appreciate our listeners so much. We have like 1,300 downloads now. We're all over the globe, and we want to say thank you to our listeners. And if you're a listener and you appreciate this, would you share it with somebody who you think would benefit? Number one. Number two, if you're a listener and you have a story to share, like an amazing story like Grace had, if you have a story to share, get in touch with us. We have a little form that you can fill out. Fill out the form. We'd love to hear from you. Love to get you on our show.
Yes. All
All
right.
right.
Great.
And on that
So
note,
mission accomplished. Thank you so much.
yes, thank
Thank
you
you
so
guys.
much. We appreciate you and we look forward to seeing you back in our gym soon. You're always welcome at our gym. Always.
Yeah,
Take care,
hopefully next
Grace.
holiday. Bye.
All right. We
Thank
look
you,
forward
Grace.
to it. And
Bye.
Merry
Bye-bye.
Christmas, everybody. Happy holidays.
Well, there you have it. As we wrap up today's episode, let's take a moment to reflect on the powerful connections we've explored between the art of jiu-jitsu and your career. In your workplace and in jiu-jitsu, you learn to adapt and navigate challenges. So remember that persistence and the courage to embrace the lessons that you learn are the keys to your growth both on the mat and in your career.